Hello and welcome to my new video about pipelines. It's about sixth time that I'm recording this video every time some kind of problem is coming up. I hope this time goes through. Okay, in this video we are going to talk about pipelines. We are going to talk about different environments, how to do the promotion between these environments, what steps to include in our pipelines, and different types of code promotion that we are having in the industry. Plus, we are going to talk a bit about the latest movement in the industry regarding pipelines and environments, and that is production first environment development. So let's go and talk about it. Okay, let's talk about pipelines. I remember the first job that I applied in Canada after I immigrated in here. It was about software engineering, and I applied for mid-level software engineer, but I think they wanted me to know about software engineering and pipelines. So they asked me, if you had unlimited resources and you had unlimited time, what kind of pipeline would you make? So basically I said, pipeline that builds the code and pushes the production, something like that. Yeah, I didn't get that job. But if you are going to be in a startup that they're asking you that question, ask back what kind of pipelines they have. And if they give you something that is more than 3 steps, I think it's better that you leave. And I'm happy that I left that place, because those guys, they went under. And that's what's happening with the industry, or people that they are not focused on their production. And that's the production first movement. We are going to talk about it later. So what's happening with the pipelines? Before talking about pipelines, we should think about journey of the code and how developers really do this journey of the code. It's like that. Developer probably develops the code, he pushes it to the main repo. But what kind of branch he's going to push into? We have different kind of workarounds in the practices in the industry. I remember we have 2 of them that it's mainly used. Let's talk about both, and then we can go to the pipeline. The first version is that we have one main branch, or master branch they called it before. We have one main branch, and then if the developer wants to have a new feature or he wants to fix a new bug, he just spawns a new branch in there. He fixes the bug or develops the feature, and then he merges it back to the main branch. So we have a maximum 2 branches happening. There is another one, and that is another solution or practice that it's happening, and that is we have one main branch, they call it prod branch, and there is another branch that is coming out of the main branch, and that is staging branch, and there is another one coming out of a staging, and that is QA branch, and there is another coming out of QA, and that is dev branch. And every time developer wants to develop a new feature or a new bug, fix a bug, he goes in, brings out another branch or creates another branch of the dev branch. He creates the features, or he goes in and fixes the bug. Then he pushes or merges back to dev. Whenever he merges back to dev, he's going to deploy to dev environment. Whenever that dev branch is going to merge back or rebase with the QA is going to be deployed in the QA environment. Whenever the QA are happy, they want to go into staging. Again, staging is happening. And then the next push on the production environment is going to be updated. You see, it's waterfall approach to promoting the code. Let's talk about the simpler. Either of these approaches you want to use, it's completely okay. Again, whatever I'm talking about is going to be applied for both. But it's better with what you're dealing with. So for simplicity, just let's take the first step or first approach. And that is just we have one main branch, and if you want to develop any bugs or develop any features or fix any bugs, you just go out of the main branch. So developer creates a new branch, he develops his code, and he pushes his code to the dev branch. What kind of steps you want to have in here? Probably you want to give developer some kind of feedback what he has done with his code. So maybe on each push in the feature branch or bug branch, you want to do some kind of unit test. And many companies, they choose not to do that because they want to reserve the resources. But if you want to do that, it's completely okay. It's like early feedback to developers. Developers can run also those kind of like unit tests in their system, but we are not sure if they want to do that, so we put it in there. The second step is that developer has kind of like developed the code. He wants to merge it with the main branch. So he creates a new pull request, or we can say PR. So he creates a new pull request, and that's a place that like other people are going to see his code, do the code review, or probably approve it. And that's in the PR, or when the PR is happening, that's the time that you want to run unit test for sure. You want to run probably code security test and container security test. If you want to run like the code security test, it's usually regarding like this code coverage, regarding the security, or if there is like outdated libraries that is used. The second part is container security. It means that check the container, the operating system in there, the software packages in there to make sure it's all secure, or regarding the open ports in there. So after you have passed unit test and container, container security and code security, you're ready to merge it to the main branch. So merging into the main branch doesn't mean that you're going to go to the production. That's just the first step of the way. On the first step of the way, many big companies, they say that let's have dev clusters so that developers can test their code in the cloud. So what happens in here, after they have merged it back, that code is going to be deployed on the cloud so developers can get some kind of feedback, and then they can go in and fix their code if it's needed and create like the whole process again. So we assume that it's done in the dev branch, and what we want to do in there after deploying in the dev branch, probably want to do some kind of unit test. Many people, they don't want to do that, but they say that, okay, it's in the main branch, everything that goes in the main branch, you want to make sure that it's all done again. It's not suggested after the building of the code. I wouldn't suggest like doing any kind of unit test. I would suggest doing other kind of tests like integration tests, E2E test, or some kind of like PSR test, whatever, but don't do the unit test, because unit test is something that you want to do before building the code or building the image. After you have built the image, you shoot it to the repository. It's better just forget about it and start deploying in the environments. So here we have deployed in the dev. If it's in the dev cluster, the responsibility lies on dev people to make sure the cluster is working fine or their code is working fine, or report on the bugs in there. The second phase, if developers, they say it's a go, it goes to QA environment. Usually dev manager is the person that is approving between this dev cluster to the QA cluster. So dev manager says that it's all working fine, then it goes to QA cluster. In the QA cluster, QA people go in, probably they do some kind of manual test. They have they should have actually a lot of automated tests, E2E tests, and all those things to make sure it's all working fine. So after it's all good, we should go to the next phase. Next phase is staging. Staging is for release management people and sales people. So beforehand, QA said yes, sales management people and release management people. Release management people make sure that all the features that is planned for this quarter, for this month, for this week, for this sprint, they're all in there. And just not one application, but all the microservices. So they are not just seeing one microservice, all of the microservices, maybe 10, 15 of them, they should all have the good state in there. And then after it's like a good state, usually salespeople see there what's happening in there so that they can update their slides. And after they have updated the slide, they can go to the customer and say, yay, we have this new feature. Do you want it? Pay this much for it. And if the release management is happy with it, usually they do some kind of PSR test or performance test, because staging environment usually mirror of prod. They want to see how the code is behaving in the prod environment. So PSR test means like performance test, and they want to see what is like the delay, the latency, or what is the load that the system can take. And if everything is looking good, they say, yeah, let's go to production. In big companies, production's responsibility is for the ops team, because these people, they have been around for a good time, they know how to deal with the software, they know how to debug the software, so they want to see around the production. And it's better to do that, because if you just get somebody new or fresh out of the college, it takes him 5 years to just understand what's happening in the system. Or if you get even a good SRE, it takes him the same amount of time. So it's better to have an ops team in there, especially for legacy applications. So you have ops team in there, and they are going to monitor and make sure that the application works fine. So you would ask, what about this infinity sign or infinity loop of DevOps? What's happening in here? We are having like ops team. We didn't supposed to have that one. We are supposed to break all the silos. Nope. Big companies, they are not doing that. At least most of them that I know, they don't do that. So still they have that kind of silos. But there is some kind of loop back that is happening, or feedback loop that is happening. And that is ops team, they are going to find out if there is some kind of issues with the code, probably security issues or some kind of functionality issues or load issues. They are going to give the feedback to dev manager or product manager in the companies. And the product manager is going to give it to dev manager, and it's going to be scheduled to be fixed. Or if it's like the feedback loop or feedback is coming from the customers, salespeople are bringing it back to the product management and to the development manager, and development manager to dev. So that's how this loop is happening in here. Okay, and differences between big companies and small companies. If you are in a startup, I suggest just go for the simplest thing that you can. I know that you're going to go and kind of like cut a lot of edges and like, or it's basically that cut a lot of corners. It's completely true. You're a startup, you want to move fast. So basically, maybe you don't want to have unit tests. I think it's true. You shouldn't have some kind of like bad feeling about it or being ashamed of it. At the end of the day, I know it's good. Unit tests are good, but I know that you want to move very fast and deliver products very fast. So maybe for you, just having a 2 or 3 step pipeline is enough. You don't need to have that many like clusters, probably just one pre-prod and prod. I know a company that is a startup, and they went to up to $3 million of sales with just 4 or 5 engineers. And you know, that's like a huge amount, and they were like giving service to big companies and a lot of users just with this small amount of engineers. How they did it is that they shortened the feedback loop. So the engineers, they had the freedom and responsibility to access the production. So if there was something that it was critical, they should go in there and fix it. So by giving them that freedom and responsibility, they shortened the feedback loop, and things were fixed pretty much faster. Comparing that one to the big companies, you know that loop that like their ops team is going to find out. He's going to file a finding to the product management or probably product management department, and they're going to find it out or like reschedule it or evaluate it or reprioritize it, and then they're going to give it to the dev managers are going to give it to the developers, and like that big feedback loop is going to continue. If you are going to get hired to the big companies, this is usually the process that is happening. If they're asking you to make their pipelines, sure, you should go in there and say that, yeah, I will make them, and I will make them as long as you like. If you want to look very sophisticated, probably add some more steps to whatever I said. Maybe you add one cluster in between, say we have something between staging and QA, or something between QA and dev, pre-QA, just make something up. And they're like lengthy processes, usually, but not always. For startups, you just say that I'll make your code 10x faster to development, to production. So that's what they like. They want being fast, they want to get that feedback loop, they want to just develop and get the money. So that's the difference that I see in big and small corporations. And let me see if I've covered it all. I think so. So if you have any more questions, please comment below and I'll try my best to answer it. Thank you. Have a great day.